This artist posted about a commission and then it spiraled into being a lot more when somebody noticed a bunch of similarities. And again, before I delve into this, please don't send hate to any parties involved. So the artist in question is named Nimu and they posted a commission and it looks something like this. And then somebody adds, I think it is imitating. So here we have an art piece from another artist named SSS Kwang, and then this being the art piece made by Nimu. And this is the overlap between the two. And it doesn't overlap one-to-one, but there are a lot of the similarities with the piece. And Kwong made a post writing, it is unlikely that you would come across a case where there's evidence of plagiarism or rewriting in every single work over a 6-month period. And they post a side-by-side of the two art pieces, the left one being Nimu's and the right one being Kwong's. And you can see there's a lot of similarities between the pieces, especially look at just how the mouth is rendered. Like the actual rendering just of the tongue looks very similar. You know, the 2 spike lashes for the eyes, we have 2 here as well. So possibly at this point, you might be like, okay, well maybe this Nimu artist just really is inspired by Kwong and is just referencing their artwork a lot. Which also, again, this was for a commission. And the person who commissioned it writes, I am the client of that white-haired character. As an artist who also has experienced the theft of my own work, I deeply understand how heartbreaking and disrespectful such behavior is. I sincerely apologize for your hard work being exploited in this way. I will do everything in my power to make more people aware of their cheating behavior. If the wording is off, please forgive me. I'm not very confident in my Chinese skills, so I used a translation tool. And Kwong adds, this is the fault of those scammers who infringe and cheat people out of money. You're also a victim and don't need to apologize. And the client adds extra context writing, the white-haired character in the commission is my OC. I thought it was strange that the final result was very different than the reference I provided. It's incredibly disappointing. Please go support the original artist Kwong and not a serial plagiarist. And they add, I'm realizing it might be confusing because both characters have light hair. To clarify, the work on the left, which I commissioned, turns out to have been stolen from Kwong's art on the right. And how long has this been going on? Well, Kwong has a post on their page. So this is an art piece that Nimu had made. It's kind of like a collage of different pieces. And Kwong adds, I can't believe these are all coincidences. And we see side-by-sides of Kwong's work versus Nimu's work. Here we have a side-by-side, another top and bottom, another side-by-side, and another one. Like, look at the swoosh of the hair. And Kwong adds, since last December, I've been able to find evidence in almost every single one of their images that completely copies my work. I'm not opposed to learning behaviors, but I believe the correct learning model should be analyze objective laws of drawing, conduct self-induction and summary, independent creation. I completely disagree with this level of creation, let alone using it for paid commissions. So they add, a small account followed me, so I was like, why the hell can it keep plagiarizing me after I blocked their account? And somebody added, I thought that was your side account. And Kwong says, they treat me completely as a material library to play with collage scrapbooking. Another person in the comment adds, this person is a habitual plagiarist. They've repeatedly taken somebody else's work and used it in collages without permission. Far from deleting their post, they're still active to this day. Before, one of my favorite artists fell victim to them too. If you check out this person's media tab, you will see a bunch of different art styles. They're all ripped off from somebody else's style. And it most definitely is really interesting. And again, not saying like people can't explore or try different art styles, etc. This is some of their older artwork. And a lot of their older artwork features traditional pieces actually, with a lot of perspective, anatomy studies, and like just a very anime style. And then they pivot into this like very sketchy style. And then this is their style a month later. And then like 3 months later, this is their art style. And then in another 8 months, this is the art style. So again, I'm not saying, and no one's saying that you can't experiment with a bunch of art styles, change it, etc. But they are very deep into like a lot of stylistic directions that flip over pretty quickly. And Kwong also adds, I saw it on Skeb, but it seems like he's been treating me like a material library for a lot longer than that. So this is an art piece on their Skeb. And then if you see the hands, they're really similar. And again, it's one thing to like an artist's art style and be inspired by it. And then there's like a whole other thing of kind of directly ripping off an artist. It's just so interesting because if you take a look at like Kwong's rendering on the hands, look at like how it's pinker at the tip of the fingers. And for both the thumb and the pinky, there is one like white highlight dot. And you can see the same thing in this art piece. It's the same airbrush, the same dot for the highlight on the hands in the exact same pose. See the brush stroke here on the thumb to create a shadow? That brush stroke is also here on the thumb too. And then this other darker brushstroke here to create another like ridge in the thumb. And then you might be like, oh, well, maybe that's just like thumb rendering, you know. This is like an artistic way to render a thumb. You know, everyone can render a thumb differently, but this looks very unique to this artist specifically. And then that whole element of rendering is just carried over here too. Again, no one is saying you can't like a way an artist renders something and then incorporate elements of that into your artwork. But the keyword is like elements of it, not like literally the entire thumb. And somebody adds, oh, that's a bit shocking. Using the character I commissioned on Skeb as their own material library asset and recycling it from way back then? It's an original character from the commissioner, so it feels pretty unpleasant to have it used repeatedly without permission, right? Nimu-san, I wonder if that was okay in terms of the TOS. And Kwong adds, in fact, many plagiarized works, including the ones I pinned to the top, are paid commission pieces on Skeb. And somebody else adds, by the way, the head is also plagiarized from somebody else. The two on the right are both by the same artist. The skin color has been sampled with the eyedropper tool too. And then here we can kind of see the side by side where it kind of has like the facial structure of this one, of this art piece, and then the hair rendering of this art piece and combined it together. And Kwong adds, I've also gotten in touch with other clients who experienced similar issues on Skeb, and they too stated the piece that was delivered was completely different from the setting illustrations provided by the client, with all of the anchor points wrong and the costumes randomly altered. Even if it was plagiarism, it was among the most half-hearted examples. And then Kwong reached out to Nimu on social media, writing, never seen such an arrogant person. After my days of protecting my rights, I finally got a private message from this big shot. After all, before this, he had faced multiple accusations of plagiarism from others, and he either played blind or issued legal warnings. After getting a response, I made my demands. If you're truly sincere, please publicly apologize on X, Skeb, and YouTube, which they also have a presence there, and promise to not infringe again in the future. Then, as expected, this big shot ignored me once again. So Nima wrote, thank you for contacting me. Regarding the allegations of plagiarism, I have carefully reviewed your account. To be honest, I have long been a fan of your style and felt it was exactly what I was looking for, so I used it as a reference. However, I sincerely apologize for the situation that has arisen. I often end up upsetting the original creators, which is certainly not a good thing. There are parts of my style that are too similar to the original work. I am aware that you have conducted numerous trace verification checks. However, please rest assured, I do not use tracing tools or color pickers at all. I am imitating your work. I truly respect you. I use your work as a reference. At times, I become so absorbed in my desire to create works like yours that I go beyond what is appropriate. However, I fully understand that causing discomfort to the original creator is unacceptable. While it might be acceptable as a hobby, since money is involved, legally speaking, my work cannot overlap with the original. Going forward, I will take measures to avoid overlapping with specific creators' work and strive to increase my originality. I will continue to post my work. If my work ever becomes too similar to any of your specific works again, please do not hesitate to contact me. I would be grateful if you could continue to support Nimu. I am truly sorry for the trouble I caused this time. I also hope that your activities continue to go smoothly. Some people also thought it was odd. Okay, so because there is a language barrier, right, with Kwong being Chinese and Nimu being Japanese, from my understanding, at least like that's what they like type in. It's interesting that like, I guess Nimu translated their apology into English instead of Chinese, like Kwong's native language from what it looks like. And they were adding that because, especially because Kwong took the courtesy to try to translate their message into Japanese, which is the native language of Nimu from what it looks like. But then Nimu didn't do that back, but translated to English for some reason. So I'm curious about your thoughts on this entire situation. Again, don't send hate to any parties involved because a lot of people are kind of split. Some people were saying that this is like blatant plagiarism and that it is crossing the bounds of the artist. Other people were saying, well, this guy was just like referencing your art, so it's not that bad. It's not like anything is officially traced, right? So I'm just curious, where do you personally draw the line? And of course, some people are just going to purposely be ignorant and be like, oh, you're copying this person's art style because, hey, what, you have like one similar aspect in the rendering style. But if it does get to a point where people are mistaking this other artist for being your side account because the art pieces are looking so similar, and people are kind of getting deceived through Skebs because they're commissioning Skebs, which if you guys don't know, you basically apply for like a commission and you can't request changes. So you're like, hey, I want like me with a butterfly in my hair, and you can't see the process. They just give you a final product. And some people felt like, again, that they were getting a bit deceived because their final product wasn't quite looking accurate to what they were asking for. So that is also the situation that comes into the mix. So I'm curious about your thoughts. For me, honestly, the really egregious one is like the thumb. I know it's just a thumb, so it might be kind of minor, but like how literally the exact rendering of the thumb was completely replicated. It's kind of like, I think you're like crossing the line now in terms of being inspired by somebody's art style to now this is looking like you're just trying to imitate it, and that can't get uncomfortable for the artist whose original style it is. So we have a bit of an update to the Nemu situation, and again, this is no makeup cat coming in. But on Twitter, Nemu puts out this document, and unfortunately, I have to use Google Translate to translate this as I don't speak Japanese, so take it with a grain of salt. There might be some intent and tonality that is lost to translation, but it says about this matter, I am aware that in some of my works, the use of other works as references resulted in expressions that appear excessively similar in impression. I apologize for my lack of consideration. We have already reviewed and addressed the relevant works, and going forward, we will strive to create works that are not overly reliant on specific works, aiming for more original expression. Please note that we do not engage in any copying activities like tracing. We will refrain from providing individual responses or additional explanations regarding this matter. People in the comment section feel like it's not a proper apology and that more needs to be said. Kwong quote retweets it, writing, "In short, this is the result of my efforts so far. I hope this brings everything to an end." Where they're discussing back and forth, and Nemu had messaged Kwong writing, "First of all, I'm a student and have limited time to use socials. Therefore, I would appreciate your understanding if I'm unable to reply immediately. Regarding this, I acknowledge there were several instances where the work in question lacked sufficient consideration, and I've already taken steps to address these issues. However, I cannot agree with your assertion that this constitutes plagiarism or illegal activity, nor with your request for a public apology or a written pledge. Furthermore, I cannot overlook your statement that you intend to continue addressing this matter and posting about it. I will not be responding to this matter any further. Please refrain from contacting me in the future." And Kwong basically responds like, I mean, I guess as long as you're happy, I have like nothing to say to you anymore. And people in the comments basically felt that the tone of how Nemu is speaking to Kwong isn't fair and that it comes off very like crass and harsh. And again, like, I do want to add that these people are like translating their messages back and forth. So a lot of tonality and intent does get lost in translation. Some languages come a lot more like straightforward than other languages. So that could possibly be an issue here. But at the end of the day, right, like Nemu is Japanese translating into English, and then Kwong speaks Chinese. So then they have to translate it from English to Chinese unless they read English. But I'm not sure. I know Chinese, at least, is like the primary language their account is in. When things get translated back and forth through 3 different languages, a lot of stuff can get lost. But at the end of the day, like, what are your thoughts about the situation with respect to both parties involved? Do you think this is a case where somebody just really, really, really liked another person's art style and maybe crossed a couple boundaries with borrowing aspects of the art style to where stuff's starting to look a little too similar? Or do you think this is a whole nothing burger and people are getting too overworked about it? I mean, I think at the end of the day, if people are misconstruing somebody else's art for your art because the art looks so similar, that is quite uncomfortable. And as an artist, you're very valid to feel uncomfortable about that and to try to like communicate to the other person like, hey, this is looking a little funny. Why are people confusing both of our art pieces, you know, because it looks very similar, especially with the white-haired character. So I'd love to hear your thoughts with respect in the comment section down below. And with that, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there for streamers and creators. I also stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. and Thursdays at 7:30. So I hope to catch y'all there or in another video.